Welcome on into another episode of Nate Hit the Foul Pole. We are back with our stat show, the one we promised last episode, which, by the way, it took us a while to post because I was editing for a long time. But we finally got that posted up, and it is here now for you to go listen to. So check out that podcast. We called it Down on the Farm. We talked a lot about different Orioles prospects, including Grayson Rodriguez, Gunnar Henderson, everyone's favorites. But I'm here with my co-host, as always, Matthew Pine. Matt, how you doing today? Exciting night maybe for the Orioles. Tyler Nevin is getting called up tonight to replace Brandon Waddle, who got optioned to AAA. Let's quickly discuss what Nevin means to this team. I'm hoping he can give them a little bit of an offensive charge.
Yeah, I think you've seen over the last couple of weeks, this team's getting a little stale, especially, some pieces on offense, namely both catchers, but, some other guys definitely on the field, not named Mancini or even Freddie Galvis. It's definitely very needed. Even if Tyler Nevin's not the guy long-term, I don't know if he will be or not. It's still a boost, and it still gives your team something to look forward to. These guys always bring fresh energy when they're coming up from the minor league, so I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I look at Nevin as an exciting piece because there's plus bat, it's relatively plus power, maybe 45, 50 grade bat, but it's a solid guy who you may be able to plug and play. And I think he's probably the best option as far as first base goes in the minors right now. Maybe JC Escara could be an option there. Maybe JD Mundy. There are some guys that are there that might be a little bit better than Tyler Nevin. He's had a kind of a slow start at Norfolk. The power's been there, but the contact hasn't necessarily been. But I think if there's anyone who can come up and bring a charge to this Orioles offense, get them going, bring some energy, like you said, they always bring energy. I think it could be Tyler Nevin. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does.
Yeah, I mean, we thought that maybe this would be a move for Trey Mancini. Maybe he would go to the IL with that elbow bruise. Turns out that's not the case. So that's definitely good news. Mancini continues to be on a tear, basically leading the league in RBIs consistently.
Yep.
He's been doing that last couple of weeks. So it's good to see, kind of both these guys packing a punch in the lineup.
By the way, Gunnar Henderson is now the minor league baseball leader in RBIs. So the Orioles have number 2 and number 3 for major league RBIs in Trey Mancini, who is going to probably lose that crown pretty quickly now that he's injured. He got hit in the elbow with a pitch last night against the White Sox, but he probably can easily get back up there, and Gunnar Henderson is now the leader. And by the way, RBIs don't matter. We're going to talk about that later in the show. That show, RBIs are a team stat. Probably one of them Matt and I can agree on. He doesn't agree with me on batting average. He doesn't agree with me on a lot of things, but I think we can both agree that RBI is kind of a useless stat, right?
I am completely all new age baseball thinking and statistics. So
yeah.
RBIs to me, again, it is a team stat. You're reliant who's on base in front of you.
Right.
For the most part. I mean, Barry Bonds could have 72 home runs in a season, and he could have 72 RBIs in a season. If you just look at that one stat, it doesn't tell you the full story. So,
what I will say is I agree with everything you said. What I will say is impressive is that Trey Mancini is not a god-awful team. This team has 17 wins, and they have for the last 10 games. And Trey Mancini is still producing. That, to me, is amazing. I mean, this is a guy who people don't get on base, but he makes it happen. He, gets the home runs. He gets the hits when he needs it. His runner and scoring position average is extremely high.
And the first two or 3 weeks, we were talking about how slow of a start he got off to. So he's really been doing this mainly in the last 5 weeks or so, which is even more impressive. I mean, this guy is just consistently, night in, night out. You can rely on him almost to drive one run in every night. I mean, that's Miguel Tejada-esque, prowess.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think he's a guy that is going to keep producing. I mean, we've seen a lot of Trey Mancini, and when he comes back from the injured list at some point, or not the injured list, but from where he's hurt, I think that Mancini is going to keep being a force, and he's going to keep being the guy that we know he is. Let's get to the stat show, I guess. We have a lot to talk about on that front. Matt, there are 3 guys that you picked out that you're excited about. There are 3 guys that I've picked out that I'm excited about that don't necessarily look good in some categories. Specifically for some of them, but others will look good in a lot of categories. So Matt, kind of talk about who the guys you picked are and why they're so important.
Yeah, I mean, the first guy right off the bat, got to go with my boy John Means. Just the spectacular season he's having so far. And just as a little bit of a reference for you guys, I am only checking out Baseball Savant. So I'm looking a little bit at advanced metrics and mainly at pitch selection when I give some of these stats out. John Means is in the over 90 percentile in a couple of categories, average exit velocity and walk percentage. Meaning he's in the top 10% in baseball in those stats. And he's in the red, which is a good thing, in looks like 7 other categories. So he's very consistent. The only stat that kind of popped out to me, he is in the 6th percentile in terms of max exit velocity, which means he is in the bottom 6 percentile. When people hit the ball off of him hard, they really hit it hard. So when they, line up that either his changeup or his fastball, it's going pretty far if they make contact and make solid contact. The stat that I really want to look at here is on one of his pitch selections, his curveball. Specifically on his curveball in 2021, people are only hitting 0.50 batting average off his curveball. That's because he doesn't really throw it all that often. He only throws his curveball 12% of the time, which compares to his changeup 28%, fastball 51%. So it isn't a pitch that people see that often. I think that's why it is so deceptive. And we've seen it. When it's on, it's really on. The no-hitter, nobody could touch that pitch. So I think curveball usage might want to steep up a little bit the rest of the year if he wants to continue this dominance.
All right, Matt, who is your next guy that you selected?
My next guy I wanted to pick was Freddie Galvis.
Interesting. Okay. I didn't see that one coming.
And I picked Freddie Galvis for a reason, because he seems to be one of the more consistent bats in the lineup. I wanted to look at his advanced. He could be a potential trade candidate. And I wanted to look at his advanced stats to see where he's at. I turned on his Baseball Savant page. I was very disappointed to see his advanced metrics literally all in the blue, except for 2 stats. So whiff rate and strikeout percentage, he's a little bit above the 50 percentile. In terms of exit velocity, expected on base percentage, hard hit average, he's in the bottom 20%, which is a little bit surprising to me. But
not great. Not great.
Because he does have that power, but it's not great. If you're a GM and you see that and you actually look at advanced numbers, probably not going to be a guy that's very attractive. But I wanted to bring it up for the stat show because, for better or for worse, it's something interesting to dig deep on for some of these guys. And my third and final guy, I'm going to go with Paul Fry. So Paul Fry, we've mentioned potentially slipping into that closer role with the whole Cesar Valdez mess we got going on here.
Yeah.
Tanner Scott, obviously another option as well. His advanced metrics, Paul Fry's, are exceptionally good. Exceptionally good. He is in the
that honestly doesn't shock me. He's been very good this year.
He is in the 96th percentile, 99, 93, 96, 91, 95 percentile in 6 different categories. People aren't barreling him up. They aren't getting on base. They have a low batting average expected. He's been so consistent, 106 whip, 250 ERA, and his slider. His slider is really where he makes his bread. Hitters are only hitting 111 off that slider this year, and that's in looks like 27 at bats. Obviously limited innings as a reliever, but he's just a guy that you could look to say, okay, this could be a bona fide piece to our bullpen for the next few years.
Yeah, I think Paul Fry is a guy that really has a lot of trade value. I'm not sure if it's in the Orioles' best interest to trade him, but I think that's something that they may look at, and it's something that could happen very soon, unfortunately. But having said that, the Orioles might get a lot back for him. Lefty relievers are obviously something that are very valuable. And like you said, his metrics look great, and that's something that GMs are definitely looking at right now. You talked about before how you're so into the new age of baseball, and guess what? Every GM is too, which is great for the Orioles. Really, it is. So now I'm going to run through my 3 guys that I picked out. One of them, I had to do it. I think I had to do it. It's Trey Mancini. We have to talk about Trey Mancini. He had a kind of rough start to the year. but he's kind of turned it around now. I have about 6 things I want to highlight for him. Number one, 142 OPS plus. So if you know OPS plus, the league average is 100. If you're over that, that's fantastic. He's right now at 142, which is a very, very good number. That means he's being extremely productive at the plate. On base plus slugging, basically weighted to be more accurate, I guess you could say. So Trey Mancini doing very well in that category. He's slugging right now 524, which slugging is not like a crazy advanced metric or anything, but 524 is incredibly good. Like that is right where you want a power hitter like Trey Mancini to be. If he was over 600 or something, it'd be insane. So extremely excited to see where Trey is right there. He's got a 1.3 WAR. And why I even bring out WAR is because Trey Mancini is a bad defender. He's a very, very bad defender. He costs his team a lot of runs defensively because he's just not very good. He's also got a 143 weighted runs created plus. Weighted runs created plus to me is probably the stat that embodies offense the best. I don't know if you agree with that, Matt.
Sure.
But I think weighted runs created plus being at 143, again, the league average is 100. He's well over that. Basically means he's driving in a lot of runs. He's producing a ton with every part of the bat. So again, great to see Trey in that category. And then 375 weighted on base average, WOBA. That's another great stat. 375 is incredible. I mean, that's near up 400, which is ridiculous. So Trey Mancini producing in all categories of the game. If we want, I know you took a little bit of a negative side with some of your guys. Trey Mancini's defense, he's got a negative WAR defensively. I haven't looked at defensive runs saved or outs above average, but I would almost guarantee he's negative in both of those. And probably outfielder jump, and not outfielder jump, but his first base defense is certainly not going to be quality. Mountcastle, surprisingly, has been an above-average defender there, but I don't believe Trey Mancini has. So while Trey hits the ball, his defense is something to be desired. So, look, Trey Mancini is a great hitter. This only proves that more. I'm going to jump on to my next guy, who is someone that everyone seems to really dislike on this team. And I'm not sure why. It's a guy I'm actually a big fan of, always was in the minors, and I still am now, and that's Tanner Scott. Tanner Scott throws very, very hard, and he walks a lot of guys. That's obviously the big downside to him. His walks per 9 is over 7 right now, which is horrible. That's definitely going to have to come down a lot. But I think if you look at some of these advanced stats, there's room for hope. There's room for improvement with Tanner Scott. First of all, Ks per 9, he's striking out almost 12 people per 9. He's striking out 11.9. That's great. He needs to stick around that, because if you're going to walk so many guys, you better be striking out a lot too. Tanner Scott is going to be, for his whole career, a guy that throws a lot of balls, but it has an electric arm, and that's just what he is. 11.9 Ks per 9, that's great. 120 ERA plus. Again, it's another plus stat where 100 is the league average there. 120 is well above league average. Solid stuff there.
And that's impressive in a year that's the hitting is so behind where it was
a
couple years ago. So that's very impressive, because every pitcher now just has a 2 or 3 ERA.
Right. It's amazing. Moving on to home runs per 9. He's only giving up 0.46 home runs per 9. Tanner Scott, not really a home run pitcher.
No.
He's more of a guy who is either going to strike you out or walk you. And he doesn't give up a lot of home runs, because simply the fact is that if he throws it in the strike zone, either the slider at 92 or the fastball at 99, you're probably not going to hit either. So 0.46 home runs per 9, fantastic number right there. And then ERA minus. ERA minus, essentially, again, the league average is 100. But if you're under 100, it's actually better than being over 100, which is a little bit different than any other stat. That's why it's called minus as opposed to plus. He's at 88. So, again, well above league average there for Tanner Scott. Moving on to my final guy, I had to pick him. He's basically the AL MVP, even though he's not. But he's the AL MVP in my mind. Austin Hayes. I'm just kidding, obviously. But 114 OPS plus. He is, a 774 OPS. I know there are a lot of people who will always doubt Austin Hayes because of the injuries. This guy's producing. I'm gonna prove it right now. Again, 774 OPS, solid. Could come up a little bit, but still solid. 114 OPS plus. He's got a 1.5 WAR right now. which is really, really good. That's
better than Mancini?
Yes, better than Mancini. That's near the top of the league, top of the team for the Orioles. He's got 7 defensive runs saved, which last time I checked was leading left fielders in all of Major League Baseball. And then he also has 116 weighted runs created plus. So while he's been slightly above league average at the offensive level, he's been far and away above league average at the defensive level. So while some people might be frustrated with Austin Hayes, I think you can take some of these stats and say, this is why Austin Hayes is such a good and coveted player. He's a great defender, and he can hit a lot too. Now, I actually want to call out Baseball Savant because they have a stat for Austin Hayes that I don't really understand. And Matt, I don't know if you're agreeing with me here, but they have Austin Hayes in the 20th percentile for outs above average. The 20th percentile for outs above average. Does that make sense to you? That's really bad, by the way, I should say.
It doesn't. I'm trying to figure out a quick way to see how they calculate that.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a formula they have. They know what they're doing. They're not lying about it, obviously. But I'm just
saying maybe that'll give us some more clarity on it. That doesn't make any sense to me, especially with the defensive.
For a guy who leads left fielders in defensive runs saved, I don't know how outs above average is that low. And if you need clarification on outs above average, it's essentially how many outs he can give to the team that's above an average replacement level player.
It's a range-based metric.
Range-based metric, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which is also similar to defensive run save, because defensive run save you could also argue is a range-based metric.
Yeah, you know what that makes me think of a little bit, like maybe we've talked about this before, but how like Bryce Harper was so daring in some of his early years there.
Yeah,
I question if that affects outs above average. If you're a little bit too daring or take too many risks, maybe that falls into it.
That's a possible point. I'm not sure if that's, what it actually is, but that's solid. Yeah, that's a really solid point.
Yeah. So
I also want to go through some of the baseball savant pages for the Orioles. I know we're kind of running short on time because there's a lot else we got to talk about, but just a few highlights here. Going back to Trey Mancini was the first guy I looked at. As far everything in Baseball Savant is ranked as far as percentiles go. So for Trey Mancini, he's in the 94th percentile of expected weighted on-base average. He's in the 94th percentile of expected batting average, 93rd percentile of expected slugging. He's 89th percentile of barrel percentage. So all very, very solid numbers there. And by the way, they are grading out Trey Mancini 65 outs above average.
Saw that. Mm-hmm.
So that's actually above league average at first base. So I guess consider me wrong. Moving on to Tanner Scott. Again, I know he's been bad. He's been questionable in his past few outings, but 94th percentile fastball spin, 94th percentile fastball velocity, 96th percentile whiff percentage. Pretty solid numbers there. And finally, moving on to Austin Hayes, 80 percentile expected slugging percentage, 81st percentile barrel percentage, and then 74th percentile max exit velocity. So solid numbers across the board there. Matt, you've got a news segment that you want to hit as we kind of leave the stats portion of the show.
I am debuting a new segment. We have plans to have it be a recurring segment. Zack and I are big into fantasy baseball, and I've been doing it for just about 13 or 14 years now, so I've been well-versed in
Matt and I now co-own a team, by the way, which is struggling, to say the least.
I mean, we had a good night last night. Chris Bassett.
We did.
Flexing got us 16.
Chris Flexing's kind of carrying the back of the pitching, which is basically made up of fives in every rotation. So it's been kind of rough with all the injuries we've had.
We're doing We're like middle. We're like fifth place. We're like middle of the pack. So
I mean, we're obviously going to win in the end, but oh
my god, yeah.
Who's to say?
Buxton coming back off IL. Anywho, I wanted to highlight 2 Orioles that if you are playing fantasy baseball, you're an Orioles fan, maybe you don't want to overlook them. If you have some bias and you're like, I don't know, but this actually makes a lot of sense to me. First guy I want to highlight. So this is for mixed leagues only. So if you're American League and National League and you're looking for a shortstop to pick up, I would go for a guy by the name of Freddie Galvis. Freddie Galvis is currently 8th in all of baseball in OPS for shortstops, which you might not think about for Freddie Galvis. 7 home runs, That's right near the top of the leaderboard. Got those 18 RBIs. He's a guy that you want to look at mixed leagues if he's not owned already. He's going to be owned in every American League only league. So he's my first guy. Second guy we just touched on, Zack talked about him a lot, is Tanner Scott. Tanner Scott is currently he has a not so great whip, obviously, 163 whip. So if you're in an American League only and you got your whip, you're in first place in whip, but you have a category and you need strikeouts, he's your guy to go to. He's got 26 strikeouts in 19 innings.
Yeah, I made a good point not to talk about the whip. Wanted to stay positive with Tanner Scott.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you're in a position where you can afford to give a little in whip, he's a guy in an AL only league that you definitely want to own. So, alrighty, that would be up for my segment there.
All right, we're now going to move on to, I guess, another farm update. And again, this is as of Friday, May 28th, 2021. I'm just going to run through some solid guys that have been doing. We did a whole farm episode last time, so I don't want to harp too much on this, especially since we're already about 25 minutes into the show. But I want to talk about a few guys that are performing. Let's start off with Tyler Nevin, because he just got called up.
Yep.
I talked about the plus bat. Right now, he's got a 730 OPS. Obviously playing at AAA Norfolk. Only batting 212 with the on base percentage, only at 260, slugging below 500. So the numbers were not great, I have to say. But he did hit 5 home runs in that period of time, which is not awful, especially if you know about Norfolk and how deep every wall is. And plus, at Norfolk, one thing people don't understand is that the wind blows off the water right behind the stadium and just keeps balls in that stadium. It's so ridiculously difficult. So 5 home runs is actually pretty good for a stadium like Norfolk. So I do want to highlight him. But some other guys I do want to highlight. Look at Taron Vavra, Matt. 954 OPS right now, which is insane. He's batting, 274, but a 438 on base percentage, which is unbelievable. Slugging over unreal. 500 for someone who doesn't hit a lot of home runs. He's only got 3 in the year, but he does have, 4 doubles already. And by the way, he has, 14 walks compared to 20 strikeouts, which is a very solid ratio.
I mean, he's walking, competing with Adley for the walk percentage. He's only, a few ticks behind him there. I'd love to see the on base percentage. That's got to be what Michael Elias was targeting in that trade. A guy that had potential, not only plate discipline, but he's got a lot of potential at the plate as well. Up the middle guy, which we're in need of. So I'm definitely very impressed so far.
There are 2 guys in the Orioles top 30 right now. Top 30 prospects that are actually walking more than they strike out, which is obviously if that's the entire goal. That's what you want to do. You want to limit strikeouts as much as possible. Obviously, one of those guys is Adley Rutschman, 21 walks compared to 19 strikeouts, and the other one is Anthony Servideo, who has 27 walks compared to only 23 strikeouts, which is unbelievably good. His OPS is only at 757.
He has a 260 point difference in batting average and on base percentage.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And the reason his OPS is so low is because he's slugging 269,
right?
Which is a lot to be desired right there. Right. But Servideo has been a walk machine. He's been an on-base machine. He's almost on base at a 500 clip, which is just amazing. I hope he keeps that up. Now, I do want to move on to pitchers really quickly because Grayson Rodriguez, by the way, moved up to Bowie, Matt. Thoughts on that?
He did. I think it's a good move. It tells you that he's going to move through this system fairly swiftly. I expect him to be up on the team next year at some point. I don't know when. It could be in September. I don't know when that's going to be, but you could be lining up this 2022 season to have Adley Rutschman, D.L. Hall, and Grayson Rodriguez all making their debuts.
Yeah, Grayson right now, 0.69 whip, 1.54 ERA. You can't get much better. He's only allowed 1 run or less in every one of his starts so far. This guy is the real deal. In my opinion, the best pitching prospect in baseball. I do want to move on to one more guy before we wrap up this segment, but that's Kevin Smith. Right now at Double-A, and he is pitching in 4 starts so far. He's pitching to a 1.06 ERA. Which is just ridiculous. Another guy pitched last night on Thursday and was unbelievable once again. The whip is a bit high. It's 1.24 right now. But look, I mean, just another really, really, really solid ERA. Another guy who I can't really see being in Double A for much longer.
He ranks first place in ERA in the Eastern League. Next
Yes.
closest is 140. He has 22 strikeouts in 17 innings. I mean, yes, he is a little bit older than some of these guys in Double A, perhaps, but I mean, just putting up those numbers alone, this team needs pitching like hell. He could be a guy that makes his debut later in the season. I think that would be a good move by Elias.
Yeah, I think he's definitely on his way. He's 24 years old already, so I think that's a guy who could rise up quickly. Now, I do want to mention one guy that's having a rough start to the year. Really, really rough start to the year. He's been injured a little bit, but that's Alex Wells. 4 starts for him, 13 and 2/3 innings, 9.88 ERA right now, and a 2.2 WHIP. Those are very, very awful numbers. I think some of this you could see coming a little bit. He's a guy who's kind of like a Tom Eshelman, but with a little bit better stuff. He just does not throw hard at all. He kind of just lofts stuff in there, and if everything's not working perfectly, it's going to be a rough night for him. And at AAA, he's just been relatively ineffective, which concerns me a little bit for him. But there's a lot of time to turn it around, long season, and it's not going to define his season, but it hasn't been a great start so far.
Yeah, I mean, even when he was at one point a few years ago, he was considered a top 3 pitching prospect in the system.
Yes.
Even then, you knew with his stuff, this guy was not going to be anything more than maybe a stretch reliever. Like, he just does not have the stuff to be there. He could pitch, maybe come in 2-3 innings, kind of the Adam Plucko role, somewhat. It doesn't shock me. I'm saying, it's kind of sad to see. I like his story coming from Australia. He's got a twin, I think, in the Minnesota Twins organization. So he's kind of a guy I always rooted for. He draws a lot of parallels to me, to like a guy like Drew Rom, who doesn't really throw that all that hard, but gets a lot of outs, gets a lot of keeps people off the base paths. But this season is just not happening for him.
Well, you mentioned Rom, by the way. He's at a 2.7 ERA, 1.2 WHIP. So Rom has been good. Only at A+ Aberdeen, but still not a bad start for him. And then I don't remember if we mentioned this on our last show, but Kyle Bradish got called up to AAA Norfolk. He struggled in his first start there, but hey, Kyle Bradish is a very good pitcher, and he's only going to keep getting better. Super excited to see what Kyle Bradish can do for the rest of the year. Any guys you wanted to highlight, Matt, before we get out of here? Is that kind of, did I cover everything?
Just one guy, JD Mundy. You mentioned him. Down there in Delmarva. His OPS right now is over 1,000.
Yes.
He's kind of a surprising guy for me coming out. He came out of Radford, which is a real small school in Virginia. There's always that guy every year that surprises in the minor leagues. He could be that guy this year, that he just kind of, comes up the ranks a little bit. He is a first baseman, so, you got guys lined up. You have Nevin, you have JC Escara, now you have JD Mundy. So you kind of got a guy almost at every level here. So keep an eye on him.
They do, yeah. It's a good point. And also the legend Ryan Ripken.
How could we forget him?
How could we forget Ryan Ripken? There is actually one guy I wanted to highlight as well. Before we get out here, Hudson Haskin, batting 347 to start the year, 460 on base, 932 OPS. Wow, this is really solid numbers. I looked up his numbers from Tulane, where he came out of. They were not nearly as good. So Hudson Haskin, very exciting. The Hunter Pence comp is looking real so far. Maybe
Hunter,
would like to
Hunter
see
Pence comp with on base percentage.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, it's Hunter Pence was always a good on base guy. That's exciting for sure. Ranked number 14 in the Orioles system right now by MLB Pipeline. He's probably going to rise if he keeps doing this. By the way, something we haven't mentioned on our show yet, Gunnar Henderson has broken into the top 100 in Baseball America and MLB Pipeline. This is not new news, but it's notable news that we haven't mentioned. So very good stuff there. Gunnar Henderson's amazing. I'm not even going to highlight him because we all know how great he's doing. I think everyone knows at this point.
He was clearly overmatching pitchers at the level he was at. Did he get moved up? He did.
No, not yet.
Oh, he didn't? Okay.
No.
Well, let me rephrase that. He is clearly overmatching the pitchers that he's facing now.
Yes.
He is very young. He's still 19 years old. There's still going to be growth there. There's still going to be growing pains there. But he could easily rise quickly. This is just a guy who's already growing into his body. We see the OPS. I'd like to see him get a lot of bats at Aberdeen.
Yep.
Maybe he possibly finishes the year at Bowie. I know that's probably asking a lot, but you never know with this kid.
Yeah, I mean, him and Jordan Westburg right now, OPS is over 1,000. I'm not going to go through all the stats because it's incredible, and I'm sure everyone's already seen them at this point. But yeah, exciting times across the entire minor league system. There's a lot of guys hitting. There's a lot of guys pitching well. And as the Orioles right now have lost the last 11 games they've played, it's time to turn to the minor leagues and kind of check out what they're doing. The Orioles have not much semblance of hope right now, but the minor leagues show us what's coming. So always excited to see that. Matt, any last words before we get out of here?
I'm just excited to be going to Camden Yards again. You and I are going on the 5th. I'm going again with my buddy Daniel on the 18th. So I'm just pumped to go back. I haven't been yet this year, so it's been too long, far too long.
Matt, go-to food at Camden Yards. What's your go-to food?
Man, I'm a big fan of those crab fries. I really like those.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. You can't go without getting the crab waffle fries. Right. Every time I've gone for the past like 15, 20 times, I've gotten the same thing. It's great. Yeah,
it's like certain cities you go to. Like I'll go to Philly, I'll go to a Union game or a Flyers game or something, and I'll get Chickies and Pete's. It's the same thing in Baltimore. You got to get crab related something. It's great.
I got Chickies and Pete's when I was in Wilmington Blue Rocks.
Yep.
Solid stadium, by the way, if you haven't checked that out. It's not that far from people in Baltimore. So they have Chickies and Pete's there, which is incredible. Love that place. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Matt, that's going to wrap it up for this podcast. Solid pod once again. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media. We'll be trying to tweet a little bit more now that the summer's coming up. Maybe talk about the minor leagues a little bit more on that account. Follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on all of our different platforms. Make sure to like all of our videos and comment if you can. And we'll see you next time.